For those who don't know, usually, when Mason and I make a video, we like to shoot out jokes and see what sticks. Well, to be honest, a lot of our comedy can end up being unfunny or just inherently cringy on a second glance. It makes trying to balance our types of humor hard due to disagreements we end up having on some of the content that we make. For example, we were thinking of a video idea revolving around religion, an already risky topic. So I started by explaining the premise of what I wanted to make, and I said a couple of jokes, in which Mason said,
It's a bit edgy.
This all culminates to when we make a video, and we usually debate back and forth until the video is solid enough to be released. Except, I have all the power to blackmail Mason, and he has all the power to write something coherent. So we have our own checks and balances. And also because we stole this video idea from some comment. Get fucked, Matax5, you're not getting paid for this. Actually, wait, here's a penny for your troubles. Don't spend it all in one place, kid. So what makes something dark or edgy? Strangely, these words don't really have a consistent definition. Sort of like when people use woke or based, you don't really know what it means, but it's just more of a gut feeling. Sometimes you can look at a game, movie, or book and automatically say it's dark or edgy, but are you right? The answer is no, you're wrong. Nobody uses these words right because of how subjective they are. This also goes into the square rectangle rule, where an edgy story is dark, but a dark story isn't necessarily edgy. To give an example, BoJack Horseman is a dark descent through the life of a washed-up sitcom star. He goes through several arcs of learning and growing, but always seems to be 2 steps behind. In BoJack's world, life is a family rom-com with a happy ending after the next 30 minutes. But he knows this is fake. The show takes a very disturbing view into the lives of these celebrities. BoJack keeps relapsing into these bolts of alcoholism and sexual degeneracy, while the characters around him suffer the consequences. The themes presented in the show are so down-to-earth that it really doesn't matter that they are animals. I guess my favorite example for this show is the second to last episode of season 6, where BoJack comes to terms with his own death. I just love the way how they portray his final moments before we cut to black, leaving on a cliffhanger. The world of Fallout is what I would consider to be dark without being edgy. Everything is pretty depressing. Knowing one day soon a nuke will drop on my head, it's always calming to pretend that I would survive it. Until I realize that my options are pretty limited. The Fallout series is great at showing off little stories throughout the destruction around you. Sometimes you'll see a skeleton in a cramped space and think, wow, that must suck. The use of the visuals and the holotapes paint a clear picture of humanity still trying to hold on. There are so many individual areas in the series that will make you stop in your tracks. I think what makes them so scary is the implication that the apocalypse can happen at any moment, and man's imagination for pain knows no bound. Fallout manages to have a dark story while simultaneously not taking itself too seriously. Having this dark post-apocalyptic wasteland through the lens of a retro future style keeps the tone somewhat consistent while allowing bouts of levity. But then there are other products, like Agony. This game is a piece of shit. Really, anything made by Mad Mind Studios is over the top. I try not to use the word edgy a lot, cause when you look at media with a closer eye, sometimes you can see what they were trying to do, even if it didn't hit the mark. Agony is just edgy, plain and simple. Now you could probably already tell off the name alone. The story of Agony is about traveling through hell. Already as edgy as that is, there is more. The game is all about shock value without any buildup. Vagina apples, demon sex, torture, and cement made from dead babies. Hell for us, heaven for Dolly flesh. I get the aesthetic of this version of hell, but their depiction is so boring. But good luck trying to see anything because this game is pitch black. You can't just shove demon titties in my face and kill a baby to be dark and mature. It's actually more unintentionally funny because it tries so hard. There's no horror in hell, it's just a bunch of meat and cum. This just becomes goofy. So with these first 3 examples, we've shown the far ends of what I believe are the ranges of dark and edgy content. BoJack Horseman on one side, Fallout somewhere in the middle, and Agony on the opposite side of BoJack. But these were my takes. What do you think, Mason? Oh, let me just get him out of his writing dungeon. Oh shit! Where are my keys? Oh no! He's escaped! I hope he doesn't use his shitty fucking microphone to record this part.
So, I'm probably the last person to be advising on the difference between dark and edgy. I'm not a good litmus test for these kinds of things, but that's because I'm of the opinion that something being edgy doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I was always a bit of an edgelord though, so it's not something I can just pretend I'm the authority on. There's a good portion of people who use edgy as a negative descriptor, but also haphazardly slap the label on anything with a black and red color palette. I understand though, Shadow the Hedgehog has a lot to answer for.
A Chaos Emerald? You've got to be kidding me, guys. This is like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me.
Like, I think I can stand most forms of edgy media as long as it's presented in an entertaining way, and a lot of dark media gets mislabeled as edgy and vice versa, or people just call something dark to dismiss any criticism of things being edgy. A great example is the series Berserk. Berserk is almost universally loved and cited as a very important part of media history, especially in anime and manga, but I can see a lot of people coping by saying Berserk isn't edgy, it's just dark, as if that means anything. Berserk gets its fair criticism for using a lot of sexual content for shock value, not to mention the monster inside plotline and the cool black fantasy armor that turns you into a near immortal killing machine of unadulterated edge. Berserk is most definitely edgy, but it comes with a great story and some of the most beautiful artwork in manga. There are a lot of deep themes in Berserk, but going into them would take up the rest of the video. Simply put, edgy content has its place in media when presented properly and honestly. Another example would be Spawn, and most of Todd McFarlane's work for that matter. Todd McFarlane is kind of the progenitor of the modern edgelord characters, just because of his influential art style that many people despise today. Spawn is the story about a government assassin being betrayed and killed, then sent to hell, and then coming back after striking a deal with the devil to be a pawn of hell's schemes, all while he stalks the shadows and has mental breakdowns about his tortured past. Again, this is edgy content, there's no trying to hide it, but despite that, once again, he's not necessarily a bad character, and neither is the narrative surrounding him. Both of these edgy, grimdark stories all have very deep themes about the nature of evil, one's capacity for redemption and overcoming trauma. But for the sake of the video, I will talk about something I consider to be edgy and terrible because of its edge. Nearly all of anime, but seriously, there is an example, a show called The Eminence in Shadow, and I think it suffers from being too edgy for its own good. I was drawn to the show when I saw this scene while I was scrolling through YouTube shorts. This scene immediately had me interested, as I can't remember the last time a show had depicted a teleport-style move like that. It was an incredible artistic decision, and as soon as I started watching, I immediately began to hate the story for how fucking edgy it was. Every other monologue is intentionally written to be cringe-inducing, self-insert power fantasy garbage. For those who don't know, the story's an isekai. An isekai is essentially an anime in which the main protagonist is from our world, and then gets reincarnated through some means into another fantasy world. Some of the best isekai include the Thomas Covenant books Narnia and Cyber Chase.
Wow, bravo, bravo. I give you this one chance to help me with the video and all you do is talk about anime. See, this is why I keep you in the writing room. But anyways, Mason, do you like Outlast?
I'm more of a Dead Space guy. I've always found Outlast to be a bit gratuitous, even if Dead Space is a lot less slow burn at moments.
Oh, come on. Outlast isn't that bad. There are some subtile moments in that game.
You keep saying subtile wrong.
Subtile? What the fuck is wrong with you? Well, I think the Outlast series is one of the scariest franchises in video game history. The first Outlast was published in 2013 and somehow still keeps me on my toes. The game perfectly makes the player feel defenseless and weak, and there are not too many jump scares that make the experience obnoxious. The most recent game in the series, Outlast Trials, is a great example of dark content. I mean, the whole concept of the game is that the facility you're kept in is trying to make you a sleeper agent who will be up for the task of any operation. The environments you walk around through are so detailed and have so much thought put into them.
I do agree, but I think Outlast has a problem with many of its most memorable scares being based around its shock value. The only reason anyone ever talked about the Whistleblower DLC was because there was that doctor guy that was going to cut your cock off, and the things people remember about the base game of Outlast was like the twins.
The twins? That's it? What about the Wall Rider? What about the church guy? What about
the judge?
Wait, the judge? Oh yeah, the judge. He never sleeps, the judge. His feet are light and nimble. He never sleeps. He says that he will never die. He dances in the light and in shadow, and he is a great favorite.
He never sleeps, the judge. He's always dancing, dancing, He says he will never die.
What the fuck? I didn't know you read.
Yeah, barely.
But that does remind me that Blood Meridian is a good example for this video, because it somehow manages to escape being edgy, but somehow commits every other crime that edgy stories do.
Yeah, that is true. It's weird, right? How some forms of media we look back on now are viewed in a different light. Blood Meridian is one of the American classics and was probably one of the darkest works of fiction. But I could definitely see how someone now reading the scene where a guy bashes two babies on rocks can think it's edgy. Oh shit, agony! Yeah, there we go. I just remembered that.
Yeah, I think if Blood Meridian was released today, it would be called edgy. But maybe it's because of the presentation. Like, you can't imagine Cormac McCarthy as being an edgelord, or at least not in the same way you imagine a Tumblr writer.
It's strange how we can see things like Outlast and debate on its gratuitousness or not, while Blood Meridian has tons of depictions of worse things happening, and people just accept it as a classic because it's old.
I think that layer of age makes what would otherwise be edgy nowadays be seen as dark and mature.
Do you think people would say the same thing about Jeff the Killer in 20 years?
Maybe. I don't think so. But it really is all about how it's presented. Maybe that's what we've discovered. The difference between edgy and dark is not content, but rather presentation. And some things age will adjust its presentation. We can look at media like The Cube or The Darkness and place them into their own categories. But over time, these things will change. Time will age you like milk sometimes. And presentation can only get you so far. But some things, when they first got popular, could have been known as great works of art, and later down the line, they can just be called pretentious. But the fine line of edgy and dark all revolves around opinions. One man's dark is another man's edgy, and although the difference can be obvious in some circles, there's always going to be someone who thinks agony is a good game.